Jesus told his disciples this parable. A man going on a journey called his servants and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to a third one, and each according to his own ability. Then he went away. Immediately, the one who had received 5 talents went and traded them and made another 5. Likewise, the one who received the 2 made another 2. But the man who received the 1 went off and dug a hole in the ground and buried his master's money. After a long time, the master of the servants came back and settled accounts with them. The one who received 5 talents came forward, bringing the additional 5. He said, "Master, you gave me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more." His master said to him, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you great responsibilities. Come, share your master's joy." The one who had received 2 talents also came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more." His master said to him, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you great responsibility. Come, share your master's joy." Then the one who had received the 1 talent came forward and said, "Master, I knew you were a demanding person, harvesting where you did not plant and gathering where you did not scatter. So out of fear, I went off and buried your talent in the ground. Here it is back." His master said to him in reply, "You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I did not plant and gather where I did not scatter. Should you not have put my money in the bank so that I could have gotten it back with interest on my return? Now then, take the talent from him and give it to the one with 10. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will grow rich. But for the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And throw this useless servant into the darkness outside, where there will be wailing and grinding of teeth." Hello and welcome to Close Walk Catholic Communications. I'm Father Bayer, your host, and we're glad that you can join us today. You wicked, lazy servant. You did nothing. If I had to put into a simple statement what the gospel is asking, it's not about what you have. It's about what you do with what you have. That's the challenge. For the last 25 years, I've had a housekeeper, wonderful lady, just wonderful, wonderful lady. Very close to her mom until she died. Dad, that was another story. She had a wonderful husband. She had 5 kids. And her husband died young, at the age of 52, of a heart attack. And she ended up, raising the kids by herself. Some of the kids, she ended up raising their kids. And a big mess with that. And she was very, very committed to her high school. And she always looked forward to her high school reunions because she never had the chance to go to college. And she would go to her high school reunion, and many of her high school classmates were now professionals in one form or fashion, and some of them were college professors, and some of them had done financially very well. And they would always ask her what she did. She cleaned houses for a living. And she would say, I'm a housekeeper, and I got news for you. Nobody cleans a house like I do. I dare you to find anyone who can clean a house and iron better than I do. I always loved that about her. I always loved the fact that life offered her very few opportunities. She's a bright lady, but life offered her very few opportunities. And most people would say cleaning someone's house is not exactly what you want to aspire to in life. But she took that one talent, she did what she did it very well, and she was very proud of who she was. And she raised 5 children, she raised 4 grandchildren, and she never took a penny of the government's money to take care of her family. And she's proud of what she did, and she has every right to be. You know, we live in a world that assigns importance to people based on what they do. We live in a world that, you know, if you're a doctor or a lawyer or an Indian chief, wow, you're very important. And we oftentimes look at people who do menial tasks and we don't give them the respect and the dignity that they deserve. Let me tell you this. Next time your toilet backs up, call a judge and see how far that gets you. Now, next time you lose electricity, call your local elected official and see how long you stay in the dark. We don't oftentimes do that. We don't recognize the people who've worked very, very hard to develop their task, and we somehow seem to look down our nose at people who don't have college degrees or are not what we call professionals. You know, your car won't start? Good. You know, call a doctor. Those things are all very, very important for the way we want to live our lives, and respecting the dignity of people who do really difficult tasks, but they do it without much credit, without much praise, and oftentimes with suspicion. And we need to recognize their talents. Great story. You've heard me tell it, but you know, after 20 years, I got to repeat some stuff, you know? I was a deacon, and I was assigned in a parish, and a lady came in to see me, and she said, Father, I just retired. I had a beauty shop, and I am no longer doing hair. She said, you know, 30 years ago when my husband walked out on me, leaving me with 4 kids, she said, I had to raise my children from a beauty shop. He said, I'm finally retired. I'm able to retire. And she said, you know, I've always wanted to be very involved and active in the parish. But she said, you know, I don't know what I could do. She said, I could never do something like read at Mass. All those names, I would be too nervous. She said, I love children. But she said, you know, I haven't done much in my own faith life, you know, since going to Catholic school up until 8th grade. And she said, I'm scared if I would try to teach kids and they would ask me a question, I probably wouldn't know the right answer and wouldn't be able to handle it, you know. And she said, but you know, I know that this is an elderly parish. We have a lot of old people. And she said, I know when I'm not feeling good, she said, nothing makes me feel better than getting my hair done. And I'm thinking maybe I could go around to the homebound and shut-in and fix their hair for them, and that would be my contribution to the parish. Wow. You talk about multiplying one talent. You talk about not burying it. You talk about taking what God has given you and finding a way to serve the Lord. Who'd ever thought we could serve the Lord with spoolies and a hot iron, right? But she took what God gave her and she multiplied it. So therein lies a question. You know, and I'm telling you one of my prejudices. When I walk into a doctor's office and a sign says full payment is due before the doctor will see you, there's something wrong with that sign. It just is. You know, I start to think to myself, is that doctor really worried about me? Because whether I stay in there 5 minutes or an hour, it's still going to be X number of dollars. And I wonder whether or not this is a person who sees that God has given them the ability and the knowledge to heal people. And I realize you can't do it for nothing. And I realize med school costs them a ton of money. But when money is primary to patient care, and a lot of doctors will probably respond to this, but I'm not talking about the sign. I'm talking about the people who make their choices to use the talents that God has given them, and the money becomes more important than exercising your talents. Just recently, I had an opportunity to visit out of town with a cousin of mine who was a dentist, and we were having supper, and recently he sold his practice. You know, they sell the clientele and everything, and they kept him on. And he said, you know, he said, I probably had about $250,000 a year that was billable that I didn't bill, because he said, I like to help the indigent. And we have a big family. I take care of the family. And he said, the guy who bought the practice said, well, you have to bill everybody now. He said, I'm not going to do it. Fire me. He said, I can get a job. He said, I'm not going to do it. He said, to me, it's never been about the money. It's been about the fact that God has given me the ability to help people and make people feel better about themselves. And when I'm not able to do that, he said, I no longer want to practice dentistry. And it really is, it's what today's gospel is about. It's not the amount of talent that you have been given. You know, it's about how you use that talent as a way to serve God. And whether it's as a doctor and a dentist and giving people a smile back, whether or not it's a housekeeper who makes sure your house is spick and span, or whether or not it's someone who goes around the parish and gives their service to homebounds and shut-in by doing their hair. This is what the gospel is about. And unfortunately, we live in a world that more often than not, the question we ask is not about what can I give. We more often than not, we ask the question about what can I receive? What's in it for me? There's nothing in it for me, then why should I do it? And we kind of lose that whole sense that what God has given us and the talents he's bestowed upon us are used for the glory of God, and not so that I get the praise, I get the credit, and everyone talks about how wonderful I am. It's about seeing how good God is, because he's given this to me, and he sent me to preach the good news. Sometimes it's with a bucket and a mop. Sometimes it's with hot irons and a spoolie. And sometimes it's fixing someone's teeth. Whatever it is, we need to find a way to serve the Lord. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment. Hi, I'm Father Jeff Bay from Closer Walk Catholic Communications. Join us here on this station each week as we strive to bring you the gospel message with great clarity and great charity, and may God bless you in your walk each day. After a long time, the master of those servants came back and settled accounts with them. The one who received 5 talents came forward, bringing the additional 5. He said, "Master, you gave me 5 talents. See, I have made you 5 more." His master said to him, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you greater responsibilities. Come, share your master's joy." The one who had received 2 talents also came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 talents. See, I have made you 2 more." His master said to him, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you greater responsibilities. Come, share your master's joy." The invitation to come and share the master's joy is based on not what we have, but what we do with what we have. You know, one of the things that has really kind of troubled me throughout my life is the idea that here in this country, and that's where I've spent my priestly life, is that welfare is not only a program, welfare is a mentality. And unfortunately, within the faith community, there's a real mentality somehow that God owes me. I deserve this. I mean, I've been good. I've never done X. I've never done Y. I've never done Z. And look what happens to me. And all these other people who don't give a darn about anybody or anything, and look at them. They get this, they get that, they get the other thing. One of the things is, God doesn't owe me anything. He really doesn't. You know, I look at my life and I go, I can walk, I can talk, I can hear. I've got a reasonable mind that I could go to school and learn. First of all, I was born into a family that thought loving me and protecting me was the most important thing they had to do. And then they had to educate me. And they scrimped and saved and sacrificed so that I could be educated. That's a gift. That's a blessing. But guess what? I was born with 2 hands, 2 feet. I didn't have any childhood diseases. I didn't have any childhood deformities. You ever see these commercials on television for Shriners and St. Jude Hospital? Well, I'll tell you, I could no more be chaplain at that hospital than flying to the moon. I can go to the state penitentiary. I can do that. I can handle that easily. You put me in a room full of children who are suffering, and I'm a big blubber. I mean, I that just goes right to me. Well, I don't know why it wasn't me who had those childhood diseases, or lost a limb because of cancer, or had to deal with X, Y. I don't know why it wasn't me. You know? So the idea that God owes me more than some of these people who were born either into very difficult life situations with illnesses, deformity, not having the ability to learn, I don't know why. And so to look at what God has given me and thinks I'm owed that is foolish. Nothing has ever made that more clear to me than my travel in third world countries and see how some children have no opportunities, no medical attention, no opportunities to learn, don't even have clean water to drink. And look at me, fat and happy. So the idea that we have a welfare mentality with God is a mistaken notion. So you've been blessed with 2 children, 5 children, 10 children, whatever the case may be. Check their diapers. They don't come with a warranty. When that child was born, God didn't tell you, I promise you, that child will be here at your deathbed. If that child lives to adulthood, you're blessed. You're lucky. Many parents have lost a child, unfortunately. And some have gotten so mad with God that they've lost their child, that they've abandoned God and abandoned their faith and abandoned their church. But what's interesting is, and this is not so much, but a few years back, when a child was born, people used to decorate mailboxes, balloons and storks and, daddy's got a new little hunting buddy and mommy's got a brand new cheerleader or whatever, and, all these invitations were thanking everybody except God. If you've been blessed to have a child, that's a gift from God that's greater than anything you'll ever get. And if that child outlives you, that's an added blessing and an added gift. And not to understand that and not to realize that, and to think if anything happens to that child, God is punishing you. One of the things we developed in our parish was our own little feast of presentation. We didn't baptize during Mass, but on the days that we did baptize right after Mass, the couples, like the Feast of the Presentation with our Lord, they had to give 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons and thanksgiving for their child. The couples would come forward and say, I'm Joe, I'm Mary, this is, our other children, this is our son or daughter who will be baptized today. And thanksgiving to God, we're leaving this gift on the altar. And it could have been something to St. Vincent de Paul, to the building fund, to the human trafficking home, to whatever it was. But I tried to make that connection that if you've been given a child, you've been blessed by God. And to think that God owes me something is a fallacy for any of us. God doesn't owe me one more day. If I'm dead before this show airs, I've not been cheated. I've been greatly blessed. And we think, well, someone died young, someone died early, someone had this disease. Look at your prayer life. How many times is our call to prayer only in the midst of need? Or how often is our call to prayer in the midst of gratitude? I've just got to go to God and spend time with God to thank Him for everything that I have, my life, my health, my family, my abilities. I gotta thank God for that. When we don't, we're the ones who take the talent and think it's all about us and live in fear. Then when we've been very, very successful with the talents that God has given us, what do we do with it? More often than not, it's just getting a bigger house or more adult toys, a house in the mountains, a cabin at the beach, whatever we want to do. How many of us say, I've been so blessed. I've got to give back. Who are the people who are helping the people who are less fortunate? Is that St. Vincent de Paul? Is that Salvation Army? Is that the local food pantry is at the local soup kitchen. And, maybe because of my work schedule, I can't go, but I can give them this money and tell them to go buy the food they need to take care of those people who are less fortunate. How many of us look at, yeah, you've been very, well, I worked hard for that. No doubt you did. And no one's taking that away from you. And do you have a right to enjoy some of it? Absolutely do. But what we forget is not only do we have the right to enjoy the hard work we've done, we've got the responsibility to thank God and to give back to God for all the good that He's done for me. And there are many people who have had the same abilities, and they found a way to serve God, and not just a way to make more money or make my house bigger or make my toys more numerous. They found a way to give back to God. And you know what? I know I was building a church, and we did a 5-year pledge. And I had a guy who was a very wealthy doctor, lived in a gated community, and he was able to pledge $2,000 over the next 5 years. I had another guy who was a recovering drug addict, who had a very successful lawn care business, who pledged $6,000 a year to thank God for his sobriety. That's the difference between 5 talents and the one who takes a talent and buries it and uses it only on himself. And that's the invitation for this gospel. It's not about what you've been given. It's about what you give back to God. It's not whether or not you're able to have a really good, efficient grass cutting service, or whether or not you're able to be one of the most respected brain surgeons around. It's about whether or not you take the talent you've been given and find a way to serve God with it and show your gratitude for all that He's done for you. From the housekeeper to the astronaut, God has been most generous. He's not a welfare God. He's a God who expects us to take our talents, to return them back to God, and most of all, to take what we've been given, to find a way to serve Him, and to find a way to serve the people created in His image and likeness. Thanks for being with us. May each day bring you close in your walk with the Lord. God bless.